Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's Twisted History Podcast. This week, it's being hosted by me, as always. You'll notice if you're watching us on Rumble or whatever other platform you may watch us on, that to my immediate right, St. Anne has gained a ton of muscle mass. It's Willie Colon in the house for this one. And then to his immediate right is Anne Hesh, one of the most famous lesbians Hollywood has ever produced. You might also know him as Jeff Vibert. John Kelly is not in the building right now. We got my man Jason on the ones and twos, and John will be the voice of God, editing and putting this thing out and making us all look good. This is the twisted history of Barstool Breakfast because I talk about it a lot. I talk about my experience in Barstool Breakfast. I'm going to break it all down with the guy who is responsible for getting me on that show and is integral to me still being at Barstool. So, and that's Willie Colon, who's a very close friend of mine. I don't mind saying that without tearing up. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Twisted History is sponsored by BetterHelp. Halloween, let us have fun with what scares us, but what about those fears that don't involve zombies and ghosts? Therapy is a great tool for facing your fears, finding ways to overcome them, because sometimes the scariest thing is not facing our fears in the first place and holding ourselves back. Annie and I had tried therapy in the aftermath of 9/11, and it was something that was very important in our healing process. And it's the easiest thing in the world to get involved with today, and I think it's beneficial for everybody that tries it out. And if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Fill out a brief questionnaire. You'll be matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch that therapist at any time with no additional charge. So overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/twisted today. Get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/twisted. Let's get into it. So Barstool Breakfast was a radio program that was on the Sirius. So it was it was a morning show that was on Sirius Radio.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And at one point, for people who've been listening to Twisted History for a long time, you obviously know that I was doing Barstool Breakfast when I first started Twisted History. And for people who are new to it, or who are even new to Barstool that weren't here when we had the Sirius contract, it was a wonderful time to be alive. Sirius gave us a full studio with employees that backed us up. Some of them were good, some of them were bad. We'll get into that. And what I thought was the cornerstone of that channel's daily lineup was the morning show. Then I think they did the Yak. Was that what was midday?
I honestly can't remember.
I can't remember either.
Yeah.
And then there was one that Dave was involved with, and I can't remember what that was either. Like there was a couple of them that I found to be incredibly forgettable. Barstool Breakfast was the one. Vibbs, from the outside looking in, what was Barstool Breakfast? How was that looked at in here in this company?
Barstool Breakfast kind of set the tone for the day because you walk into the office, HQ2, and either there's wine bottles everywhere, or it smelled like weed sometimes, and you're like, oh shit, the Barstool Breakfast boys are going at it.
Yeah,
early, which is good. And then HQ3, you had Gentleman's Friday. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of things.
No.
It was just a good vibe on a Friday. Okay, come in, people are drinking. There's cheese.
Cheese was big.
Yeah, it was very good.
So the very beginning of Barstool Breakfast had nothing to do with me. It was Willie and a couple of people. So, Will, can you tell us how they came apart, how they went? And first of all, Willie's resume. NFL guy, played for the Steelers, won a Super Bowl with the Steelers as an offensive lineman, then had come back to the Jets. Willie's originally born and raised in the Bronx, so he came home, played for the Jets. I think your whole career in the NFL spanned 11 years?
10
seasons.
Yep.
So 10 seasons, 1 Super Bowl ring, gave up a safety in another Super Bowl. And then he does a ton of stuff, and he's going to promote the shit out of today, as well as you too, Jeff. You have shit to promote today.
I do.
He's got the new show and stuff. Yeah. So this is a great episode of Barstool of Twisted History. It won't have a lot of world history involved, but it's history that's intimately dealing with me. So Willie, tell me how Barstool Breakfast came to be.
Yeah, it was interesting because when I got here, man, it was really Francis and Julie Stewart.
Fuck this, I'm jumping in again. I am so excited to be in this studio with you. I got to be honest with you. Like, I don't get giddy that often. I don't get hard that often.
Yeah, let's just go.
This is as comfortable. I told this to Jeff when I first came in. I have not prepared a fucking thing. I just brought up our ads and stuff like that. This is going to be the easiest hour and a half I've ever done, and I'm probably going to interrupt you just a bunch of times just to be emotionally invested in this thing. But go ahead, go from the beginning again. You're Willie Colon. How the fuck did you become the Barstool Breakfast guy?
Listen, so it started with Julie Stewart-Binks and Francis. They were doing their thing at the time. I was with ESPN. Locally, and it was interesting with that. Me and Julie were auditioning for Fox. It was actually Jason Whitlock and Colin Hurd had a show, and we were both auditioning for the show. The show never ended up going into fruition, so I went back to ESPN. Julie was at Barstool. She calls me randomly, like, "Hey man, I got a morning show going on. Want to give it a shot?" She's like, "It's at Barstool." I was like, "I didn't know shit about Barstool. I didn't have a fucking clue." And I was like, "Okay," and I knew I wanted to do more. It was crazy. I remember telling my buddy, I was like, "Hey, man, I got a audition, if you will, or interview with Barstool." And he was like, "Whoa, watch out." And I was like, "Why?" I was like, "Why?" He was like, "Well, it's not your typical sport." I was like, "Well, they talk ball and stuff, right?" He was just like, Yeah. But so fast forward, I do the thing. I do the audition, if you will, with Julie and Francis. And me and Francis hit it right off the rip. We were laughing at each other. We had a good time. Dave at the time was like, I think they had to get this thing going. So it was like, man, if you like him, I like him. Let's just go. And that's how it just started like that. It was interesting about the dynamic with me, Julie, and Francis. Francis was, at the time, I think Francis was building his name within the company. Yeah. Julie was, I think, had a ton of ideas. I think most people, when you come to Barstool, they have a shitload of ideas. And with all that said, I just wanted to just be Willie. I didn't really have any. I didn't come with like, all right, this is what I want to do. I just wanted to go, and so the breakfast show allowed me to just go. Because when you're on ESPN, you're on Fox. You know, from a ball player standpoint, when they hire you, they really want you to cut onions. They really want you to bring the locker room to the main stage, say shit that you're not really supposed to say, break the trust, so to speak, and kind of just be, and be analytical within, whatever you're talking about. Here was just like full throttle. We got a pound of Coke in the back. We got to, this shit can go off the rails at any minute. And I was like, this is me. Like, this is the shit I want to be a part of. And so it was great. And what's interesting about all that, Julie, and this is one of my favorite things about Barstool Breakfast, Julie is really the originator of Gentleman's Friday. Yeah. Because she...
I remember that. Yeah.
Because before Lars got here, she wanted to drink on Fridays. And Francis would be like, no, bullshit. I don't like drinking that early. I don't want to do shots. I don't want to do weird cocktails and all this other stuff. And I was like, I don't care if we go either way. I was for drinking, obviously. And so that kind of was an up and down thing. And then once Julie got up out of here, Lars came aboard, and when I was away, when you and Francis first, correct? When you and Francis first did their thing, I was away, and I came back. And I remember Francis calling me. He was like, "Hey man, this guy is awesome. He's funny." He didn't tell me how Lars looked. Right. I wasn't expecting a 6'5" white guy coming here looking like goddamn, looking like a thumb, right? Like
I'm a thumb with glasses. I will even go one bigger. So when Willie, Julie, who I've never met Julie except in passing. She was gone before I came here. I've seen her maybe at an event. And wonderful young lady. You guys would come in at 6:30 in the morning. The show would be done at 9. And at Barstool back then and now, people kind of show up around 11, 12 o'clock, 10 o'clock. So the morning show people would be leaving as other people would be showing back up. And Willie was hired just to do the show.
Right.
Like anything that Willie had done with Barstool on top of that was just him having an idea, and it was just gravy to make content. So you truly weren't a Barstool fan, as I wasn't either. When I came here from Wall Street, I didn't know anything about this fucking place. So that's one of the things that I thought was a draw for some people. We never got involved with any of the Barstool drama because we weren't emotionally invested in it.
Like, I also didn't know you were like a cult hero.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
That's what
he had his own following before he came.
Well, my financial advisor, who found out that Large was on the show, he was just like, "Is that Large McCarthy?" And I'm just like, "Yeah." Yeah. Like, what's up?
Please don't use my real name.
Right. And he was just like, "I love that guy." And I was just like, okay. Like, did he play for the Sixers back in the day? Like, why do I care? And he was like, no, this guy he is like I don't know what you call Gandalf of the fucking financial
I'll
world.
take it. Gandalf.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
He was. And so I was just like, okay. He was like, Willie, you got to read this guy's work. And me first meeting Large, I didn't hate him. I think I'm not a morning person.
Oh, I'll tell that story too.
Which is all my content, because I'm not a morning person. It takes me a while. Like I ride when I'm on my way to work. I sit in the car with no music, like a psychopath, just looking straight at the road. And so when I first met Large, he was at his desk. He was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I wasn't very talkative, so I think he tells the story. I wasn't.
I love it. I love that fucking story.
I wasn't very talkative to him.
Willie, when you first started this show, though, it was you, Julie, and Francis.
Yes.
And you guys had a little bit of a cushion as far as maybe being able to have a two-person show every now and again. But once Julie had left, the onus was on you and Francis then to just do that show every day without any kind of days off or missing or doing anything. So there was that spot between Julie leaving Barstool and me coming on board Barstool Breakfast where I believe you guys were starting to get burnt out. And even, you know what I mean? Just because it's the same exact, and even though you're not a morning person, you're a professional athlete. So I got to see firsthand how you went from being miserable or whatever in the locker room to stepping out onto a fucking field. I'm sure you're like that too every time you go out to run, Vibbs. Like Vibbs is an accomplished runner.
I can tell by his ankles.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't imagine you step out every time already with that runner's high, right? It's got to be a little bit miserable going into it.
There's times when it just drags and you're like, I don't want to do this. And then usually by the time you're like halfway through, you're like, all right, I got this.
Well, part of it too, Francis was you didn't know what Francis you was getting, right? Like some days he was just amazing, he was funny, and then other days he'd be like, I got little things going on in my life, and just like, dude, it's Tuesday. Like what happened over the weekend that makes you, or what happened yesterday to make you come back in here? And he was so up and down. And Francis is emotional.
It's the curse of being brilliant.
Yeah,
and Francis thinks about things like where I'm stupid enough to let a lot of stuff float off.
Yep.
Like Francis did not.
No.
And particularly when he started to read like Reddit stuff. He was one of those ones who told me, don't do it. Don't start reading anything on Reddit. And, and obviously he's in a better place now. But when you first started in this business with Barstool, man, if you take stuff to heart, this isn't the place for you unless you can skip the commentary altogether.
Large, you're spot on. I could tell when he read something because his mood would go from like Francis funny, whimsical and kind of quirky to he would read something that would be, I put a knife in him and he would just be morbid and dark. Mm-hmm. And so we went through that, man. But when Lars came along, to pivot back, it was interesting. We're both New Yorkers, both Catholic schoolboys, Brooklyn, Bronx. Lars is obviously a lot older than me.
Mm-hmm. Willie's obviously a lot blacker than me.
Right. Both passionate about family, food, and Large is not an NFL guy, but he knows sports, which is awesome. And I think what worked from us right off the gate, we stayed out of each other's way. He was like, dude, I'm going to go where you go. Wherever you go, I'm down. And we were just able to adjust right away. And I think that's hard. Right, like even when I'm on ESPN or doing other stuff or doing Fox or whatever, man, you get on with a guy, you're just like, I got 2 hours of this shit.
Yeah,
I don't know how I'm going to make it.
That
it was not like that with me and Large. It was just like bang, and so it was really a blessing in disguise.
When you guys finally got to a point where, and I don't know if I'm saying if I'm characterizing it correctly, as you guys were starting to get a little bit burnt out, because doing a daily show, as you know, can get to a point of burnout. So you had finally decided to
we didn't prep.
Oh yeah, but you had finally decided to take a vacation.
Yes.
That was your first vacation. And when you went away on vacation, Francis and I are very close friends, and I respect.
It was my honeymoon, actually.
Yeah, I think, and so you decided to go away. So Francis said, listen, Large, and I was brand new to the company. I was hired here to blog, and that was it. And Francis said, Large, can you come in and do a radio show with me? Willie, my partner, and I obviously saw Willie because I was one of those guys that got in kind of early. So I saw you sort of at the tail end of your day. But again, you weren't very friendly, so I didn't know you that well. And so Francis says, can you do maybe 1 or 2 shows? I have 10 shows to do, and I have maybe about 8 stand-up comedians lined up to host with me. Mm-hmm. And a bunch of those guys, not a bunch of them, maybe like one or two had scheduling conflicts, so they couldn't show up.
And Francis brought in a lot of like big name guys. Like he had Andrew Schultz, Ricky Velez. He had what's the Asian comedian from Crazy Rich Asians? He's really popular right now. But he would bring in some guys, like some heavy hitters.
So when I sat down to do it with him, it was almost like I was a filler until his comedian friends would come in and really have the thing. But when we sat down, we really jived. Like 100%. Francis and I had jived, and we have our differences too. Like Francis is an extremely intelligent, well-spoken, infinitely talented, in very good shape type guy. I'm also, well-spoken, somewhat educated and stuff like that, but I had a little bit of a different personality to his, a little bit of a different upbringing to his. So we had a little yin and yang, and it worked. So much so that he was like, why don't you just do the rest of this week with me? Mm-hmm. And then he called Willie and said, I'm next to take some time off. I highly recommend you doing, the week with Large.
Yep.
And Willie's like, okay, I'll definitely do that. I come in the first day. I get in at 6 o'clock, a little nervous. Willie shows up.
You say that. Were you really nervous?
Willie shows up at 6. Willie, I'm a 50-year-old father of 3 who comes to work for Barstool. I'm twice everyone's age. Vibbs, when I came in, I seemed like an undercover cop, right? I mean,
yeah.
But Vibbs, looking at Large and knowing, him on a personal level,
right?
And he says that. I've heard him tell that story. I'm just like, Large, you're from Brooklyn, right? You're from not a nice part of Brooklyn. You've seen shit. You've been a part of shit.
No,
it's hard for you to walk in and see just a random black guy and be nervous.
He always says he's nervous, but he'll go to these events and he's everyone's best friend, and he's hanging out with everyone, and it's I don't think this guy's ever met someone that's a stranger, if that makes sense.
I agree with that, but also from a standpoint of me being in any trading desk on Wall Street for 25 years or any trading floor ever, I was extremely comfortable and capable, and I was not overly good at my job, sort of slept my way to the middle, right? But coming here, I knew nothing about this business.
Same.
Nothing. Yeah. I knew nothing about this company. The only reason that I agreed to come work here was after the churning deal. So it wasn't Joe's House of Blogs. I was like, oh, this place is building something.
Yeah.
I didn't get any equity or anything like that, and we really built something. A lot of people made a lot of money for it. So I was right. Like, we built this thing. I said we, but Dave and those guys had built this thing to where it is now. So I didn't have a tremendous amount of people that I was comfortable shooting the shit with because I just felt extremely out of touch my first couple of weeks there. So, anywho, you fast forward, I get the opportunity to host a radio show. Now, I'm not a radio guy, and I don't know Willie. He comes in and, hey, Willie, what's up? My name is Large. I'm going to be co-hosting with you today. And I think he just bet. And he sat down and he tore into his every morning he'd have 3 bacon, egg, and cheeses, 2 vanilla milkshakes.
Can I interrupt real quick? Were you nervous, Willie, when you walked into the Barstool?
No, I wasn't nervous. I was just like, whatever, like, let's just ride, because that was kind of the vibe of Barstool, like plug and play. So I wasn't nervous. I was just more interested to see what the hell was going to come out of this guy's mouth, and I think one of the things that Large has an innate talent is to act like a chameleon.
Yeah.
Right? And so I knew the first time of us talking, I just knew he was like, all right, he was with the shits. So which helps. I think moving forward, what happens when you are on air with somebody, the thing is you don't know what the boundaries are. That's what scares you, right? So Large is obviously flippant with his mouth, and he's used to saying bitch and all this other stuff.
That was our first almost fight. I'll tell you that too.
You ever heard that?
I'm a bitch.
So, hold on, no. So I come in the first day.
Brave, being like, hey, Willie, you're a
listen,
bit like
Willie, I'm Large. I'm going to do this bet. Doesn't say shit to me. Then we go into the fucking radio room in HQ2, which was disgusting. We put on the cans. All of a sudden, what time? The show started at 7.
Yeah.
6:59, 59. Boom. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Barstool Breakfast. I got this guy here. He is he started hitting with all this thing. It's Large, welcome. And you just needed that thing. And so I immediately was like, nice. This is going to be fucking easy. We caught on right away. I will tell you that, I don't know, have we ever really argued about much, like, outside of having deferring opinions on any of the topics that we spoke about, the millions? We weren't simpatico with everything.
I'm going to say this. We've never argued. There are times, and I say this openly, and we've never talked about this, where you should have argued. Because you're such a plug-and-play type guy, you always adjust, and you never want to show any weakness. There's times where you should have pulled my cord on some shit, but you've always been a teammate, so I got to...
Very, very young into this thing, and for people who are Twisted History fans, you know about myself and Annie. We always joke around, right? The reason Annie isn't in here today is because I blew her back out last night. It just happened, right? It was clapping cheeks. So that's always been our thing, and Annie's fine with it. She told me I had her sign something before we got married.
Bless Annie.
So I think when we were doing it, maybe we were a couple weeks into it, I had said something like, Willie's like, I'm gonna hit the road doing something with the wife. I was like, just tell that bitch to wait. He said, listen, I gotta talk to you about something. He fucking Will Smith me. Keep your wife's name out your goddamn mouth. I was like, listen, Willie, I apologize. I think I apologized.
It happened on the street, actually.
I was like,
he said it on air.
Thank God.
Flippantly, and then he said it again. We were walking to our cars, and I was like, listen, I'm down for whatever, bro.
Yeah.
Stop calling my wife a bitch.
That's the one thing. Yeah, don't go there. Yeah.
And he looked at me. He's just like, okay.
Yeah.
And then we never had a problem.
So I put in my notes. So my wife is still a bitch, right? But Willie's is not. She's an absolute. And plus, we got to know each other's families. So then, like, we kind of knew about, each of our relationships and going back and forth. So I did overstep my boundaries there. But outside of that, I think it was pretty gravy throughout, because there was also an understory where I kind of Wally pipped Francis, because even though Francis and Willie had a pristine relationship, me and Willie were like grab ass fucking old
we were
buddies.
like homies in the back of the bus, like,
and we lived a mile away from.
And we didn't even know that, which all worked. But I gotta say this too. I think as far as me and Francis, what kind of soured our relationship during our time with radio was, I think me and Large got a lot stronger. And I think what we had going, and then I think Francis was doing more comedy too.
Right. That's a tough schedule. Being at a comedy
so he
club.
started kind of really going hard with the comedy thing, because I think that's when he was having the specials coming out.
Yeah.
So he was doing a lot more comedy. Me and Large was getting bigger. We're getting funnier. We started this thing started to mold itself into a thing. We had Patty. We had Zop. Like, think about this was what's frustrates me about Barstool Breakfast. We had it. Like, we had it, and me and Large saw it, and you can't tell me right now, if we were still doing that show, we wouldn't be as big as $1 million worth of game or whatever. Like, I knew we were going to be up there solely because we had Pat, who was, listen, Pat's gay, but like he would.
Oh, what?
That's gay, right? So we had Pat, we had Jesky, we had Za, we had me, we had Large, and Francis. Like, we were like the fucking, like the United Nations.
Yeah, you had everything covered. Yeah,
everything, and it was working, and we had our shit behind the camera, but we always hashed it out and always did the best for the show. And it sucks, man, because that when I saw somebody the other day stop me randomly in the street, he goes, Willie? And I'm thinking he's like, Jets or Steelers, whatever. He goes, man, I listen to Barstool Breakfast every goddamn morning, man. He's like, you guys were awesome. So he's like, and then he went on to tell me, hey, I was like, me and Large were therapy for him. Like, he got divorced. He gave me like a whole fucking like something like for like 20 minutes. And I'm like, man, I'm sorry, but it's over. He was like, man, but if you guys ever get it back, man, I hope it does, because you guys had it. And so when you get those type of, I don't know, I guess those confessions, you're like, shit, man, it was real. It wasn't just me just drinking my own juice.
Right. It was just a good, like I said earlier, it was a good vibe. Like, it didn't really get into the Barstool drama. It was just guys hanging out and shooting the shit.
Large, Large doesn't take a lot of credit. He's the one that always wanted us to stay out of that. Because I always felt, to be a part of Barstool, you had to get into the drama.
Right.
Large is like, Willie, that's not us. Like, stay away from that. And like, even my beef with Minahan, Large was the first one that said, dude, stay out of that. But it was my ego and my, my bravado was like, nah, I don't run from nobody. And it sucked that happened, because me and Large had just started a project, the food thing we did. Beats and Eats. And we were shooting a lot of great content. It was polished. It was dope. And then I got into my thing with Minahan, and then it was just like, poof. I think some of his people just, stomped all over that shit.
I think that, so, and we're going to, by the way, we're going to jump all over the map, right?
Yeah, I apologize for that.
No,
yeah.
Fuck yeah. That's the reason why I had you on, is we have history. Beats and Eats was something that Willie and I had done, and we did it at a time where, I think it's called DC8, Vibbs. Is that what happens when you have like a music thing? Is it DC8 or something like that? If you have somebody's
copyright music
in the background, the copyright.
Oh, yeah.
DC, I think it's DCA.
Yeah, it's DCA.
Yeah, and that's what people were doing as soon as we were dropping this thing, which was half food, eats, and half music, beats. So we'd have like a local or any kind of artist. We had like Angie Martinez.
Yeah,
I was listening to forever growing up. We had that one girl who had that fucking
Margot Bing. She's on Walking Dead. Yeah.
Oh man, so we'd have like all these people on, like a couple of rappers. I don't even know if they're still alive. But anyway, then we'd go to like really cool restaurants and we'd do our thing. But it couldn't go anywhere because once it went on to a big platform like YouTube, it got DC8 or whatever right away. So it was part of that. But those are like some of the side projects that we were doing. But you just kind of glance over the fact that it's Patty and Za.
Yeah, it was. We had
like if you look at any Barstool show, it's always the land of misfits toys. Like I look into this fishbowl that we're in now. Before we came in here, it was, I believe, Pick Central.
Yep.
So it was like Clemmer next to Big Ev, next to Rico, next to Mush, but maybe Tommy. Tommy was also in here too. Those guys, look like just a random group of guys. And every one of Barstool shows look like that. But none were ethnically diverse. No. There were more black guys in the Beatles than there were in the fucking Yak, right? You know what I'm saying? So Barstool Breakfast, though, had a black dwarf in Za. There was no gay guys anywhere else. And we had Patty, who is extremely sexually active in the gay community. Then you had Francis, who, this like
give you the elitist vibe.
Harvard kid, this yuppie kid. Then you have the senior citizen like me who came from fucking Wall Street. Then you have a former NFL guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have like these Purnell, the voice of God, who we never really got to see. We had Handsome Sean. Remember Handsome Sean was there for a hot minute?
Yeah.
We had what was
Trucker Jim.
We had Trucker Jim. We had Low Energy Gangster Nico.
Yeah, Gangsta Ass Nico. I remember Gangsta Ass Nico.
We had Hot Rod, right? Remember Rod Braxton?
Yeah.
We had Brandon Newman for a while. We had Brandon coming in and out.
Yeah.
Everybody that we came in looked different than everybody else that was on this thing.
I don't know if you said Jet Ski.
It was cool as shit.
I don't know if you said Jet Ski.
Jet Ski, of course.
So then we had a white SoundCloud rapper.
Right.
And by the way, the Jet Ski thing I'll talk about right now. Everybody that I'm going to speak about with Barstool Breakfast, and this is amazing to say out loud, I remember fondly. Like there isn't anybody that I don't, even though some you remember more fondly than others, everybody I remember fondly. Even Purnell, who I've only met a couple of times. So we come in, we have Jet Ski and Handsome Sean. And Handsome Sean was exactly that. Sean McDonough?
Something like that.
Hot Sean?
Hot Sean, yeah. He was in The Bachelor.
He's more than handsome. He's hot.
He's hot as balls.
He's on The Bachelor, yeah.
Intelligent kid, hardworking kid, handsome kid, the whole deal. And then there was Jet Ski, also very good-looking kid. Jet Ski, very looking, hardworking kid, the whole deal, but wasn't polished like Sean.
Oh, he's
We had a decision to make.
Yeah.
Which one we'd take.
Correct. Yeah.
And which one we wouldn't. And we took Jet Ski. And then Sean went on to sales and all that stuff. And I don't know what he's doing now, but I think he's doing very well. I see him on social, so shout out to Sean. But so then Jet Ski became it and then had to learn how to do this job. Patty had to learn how to do this job. Za, it really was a fucking great time to be alive.
And to your point, well, think about what Large, and this goes with age, age and wisdom over just being dumb and like I was at the time, goes back to I'm talking about to the drama around the office. We didn't have to reach far. We had drama right here.
Yes.
Right.
Literally between Jet Ski and Pat were always at each other. Mm-hmm. Za was this, Za, we would get mad at Za because he was Team Portnoy, but we were like, nah, it's right. You don't have to like stay here, be involved here, and that was always conflict with him. Francis and I would had our thing, and you know Brandon and all when Brandon Newman was here, and obviously me and him, and so all the drama was literally right on our feet.
It's 7 a.m. Everyone's sleep deprived, so they're ready to just like go at each other's throats.
And Friday was awesome because it was like first of all we had a sommelier here at 8 o'clock in the morning,
right?
Like that was kick ass. And on top of that, I remember people would call in and be like, "Hey, I'm at the office right now, and I just cracked open a bottle of schmuzz."
Yeah, whatever you guys got.
Yeah.
But like we did more for the $9 bottle of Silk and Spice than any advertising thing could go. But one of the reasons why I did stay away from the broader company drama, other than the fact that I just don't find it interesting. And I'm in the minority. People who follow Barstool and people who work at Barstool, you know, are into that. I'm just not that interested in it.
Yeah, but listen, I think I should have listened to you. Two, we didn't need it, right? We were better than it. And I think that comes with having that's what comes with having maturity and somebody.
We couldn't even have them on. Like if there was something with I was just explaining to you what was going on recently with Ohio's Tate.
Yes.
Right? Like, let's say, who is Ohio State's biggest villain in this office?
Probably Nate.
Maybe, yeah, Nate.
At the moment, Nate.
And Nate was one of those guys that would come in every day. Nate's here every day at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, but we couldn't count on people to be here during the show. Like Nate's a unicorn because he's here all the time, which is great, and congratulations to Nate. I think he does a great job. So, but for the most part, you couldn't. There was just nobody around. As you're doing stuff during the afternoon, I could, Kelly Keys just picked up her lunch. Hey, Kelly, can you come in here and talk about what's going on with you, Ohio State? We never had that luxury. We were the only fucking people.
What I thought what was great about Barstool Breakfast, what it was Jack Mack or whoever, if they had something going on, we allowed them to come on our show and promote what they had going on. So our audience was really, to large point, the 9 to 5 crowd. You know, people were literally sitting in their cars, going to work, listening to us, digesting us, laughing about everything and anything we were talking about, and also had a chance to oh, Vibbs, now that you're here, you got Low in the Bar going on. Tell us about it.
Yeah.
And so even if they didn't have the time to digest all of Barstool, they had at least 10 or 15 minutes to see what's the new hottest thing in Barstool on our platform. And I think that was the thing that I felt like the platform should have did. The company as a whole should have did a better job of allowing more people who are trying to get their name out there to be on their platform so we can promote each other. Because on the corporate world, like ESPN, the Foxes, that's what they all do. They all talk about their podcast they got going on top of what they know about what their current subject is. So.
When I moved to New York City, I knew no one, didn't have anything going on, and Large was like, hey, come on Barstool Breakfast and just hang out. And it was incredible. And it makes you feel like you got a little community, you got people you know, and you're like, all right. So it was something when you had nothing, and it was amazing.
I mean, to see Cons. I mean, Cons was big here.
We got to bring up Cons. Yeah. So Cons was So when I just walked, Willie and I just walked into the office, there are a lot of familiar faces, and one of the first people that came over to you was Joey Langone.
Yes.
Joey Langone is a stud when it comes to social media. Joey is a very good friend of mine. He did social for Podfathers, and it was perfect because Joey's a very good family man. He's a beautiful family, and even though he's weird looking, And Joey is
like a bag of laundry.
Yeah, he's a very bad stutter.
Yeah.
So he's always more confident, sort of communicating by text, and he gives very good social. I said, Joey, come on the show, and he was like, no. I'm not doing a stuttering thing, but he's like, Large, I don't know if I can. I was like, just put on a fucking pair of cans and see what you can do. And he came on, and it was like, he's come back to me multiple times since then. I think it was like a really seminal part of our relationship, myself and Joey's, and we're very good friends now. Brianna Chicken Fry did her first promotion for her show with Barstool here on Barstool Breakfast next to Coach Doug's.
Oh yes,
with a full fucking with a plate. They came in on a Friday drinking I think Pabst Blue Ribbon did like the coffee beer.
Yeah,
drinking and with a big bagel spread.
I give you one better. When we was in HQ2, before Call Her Daddy.
That's right.
The Call Her Daddy girls were sitting down with us, and so it's my big black ass, Large, and I forgot their names, but they were sitting right across from us, and they were like clearly looking at us like, all right, this is the other side of the moon. Like, who are these guys?
Right.
But we allowed them to talk about Call Her Daddy, and then obviously to the moon they went. So.
Yeah. And we could get on there, too, because of the freedom of Sirius, where Willie would be like, all right, so talk to me about this whole thing. All I know is that you guys have that, like, that content built around sucking dick. Is there anything else? And then it'd be like, no, we're much more than that.
Right.
Yeah. And so Sophia and Alex.
Yes, there you go.
Everybody just sort of would come on and use it as a promotional platform. And I thought that was great. But we didn't want to cater to stoolies. We wanted to cater to people going to work. And that was what I think we did successfully.
Well, I think a lot of people also felt...
A lot of back patting here today. I missed the show, and I thought it was a fucking fantastic show. So if you're going to get sick of it, just turn this off.
No, I think for a lot of people also, they felt like they were aged out of Barstool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This was a place where they came and they feel like they were aged out. And listen, you got a tall white guy and a black guy talk about anything and everything. And we didn't pull back.
No.
And some of our greatest shows, the Christmas show, Large, people forget, Large almost killed my brother, right?
That's right.
Large was gifted Ninja Stars.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so
throwing knives.
So I had brought my brother in. We're liquored up. We're oiled up pretty good. Large is doing his thing, and he throws a Ninja Star up. And it literally sticks up into like the ceiling, and we forget about it.
Yeah.
And my brother's sitting there talking, and literally 5 minutes later, it lets loose, and it falls right in front of my brother.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if my brother would have put his face, like if he would have just moved forward, it would have hit him right on top of his head.
And then you told your brother, by the way, I work with a gay guy, and that show, Francis hosted just wearing the tightest pair of red satin boxer shorts with the Santa trim and a Santa hat.
I remember that.
You know what I mean? And it was so bad that we had to go and put people in cars. We had the Scotch tasting. Scotch tasting where, I mean, we're in fucking, I was in a kilt. The guy who came in and did the Scotch tasting for us, it was like some anniversary of Keats or something like that. So it's that big Scotch day. And they had a guy come in with a kilt. I brought in some bagpipers, the whole deal. We did Scotch tasting. The guy who did the tasting with us on the show hung out, and we hung out at the bar, and he passed out and threw up in the office. We drank that's why when we see these case races on Barstool with the bussing guys, the beer Olympics, case races and stuff.
Case race is the yak.
Case races are the act. Thank you so much. Oh, so Chico Technico on the ones and twos. He's my man. Andrew, tech guy Andrew. All that stuff was so laughable to me because everybody was such a fucking lightweight.
Are you going to tell the story?
I'll tell whatever fucking story you want.
Tell the story about us, the guy that wanted dinner with us.
Oh man, yeah, that was unfortunate. I won't mention the gentleman's name, but we had a bunch of regular callers, guys who would call in all the time, and Al from Dallas was probably our favorite, along with
Trucker Jim.
Yeah. Then there was the fireman.
Fireman, yeah.
Yeah, the fireman guy. He'd actually sent me a picture of himself with his fireman badge.
Okay.
There was a lot of people that used to call in. So when we were doing some sort of charity thing at Barstool, it was Liz that took the helm, and she was raising money for like the ASPCA to save dogs, which, by the way, has now become a integral part of Barstool with Dave and Miss Peaches. We have puppies in the office as we speak now. Yeah. But Liz did this years ago, and she said to every show, can you come up with something that you guys can do that we can raffle off? So Dave was like, I'll raffle off, something this. Willie and I said, Large's favorite restaurant is Arturo's. Willie, it also became a favorite of Willie's also because, again, we lived so close together. So I introduced Willie to Mario. He had come in. We'd had multiple great meals there. And I was a fixture at the end of the bar.
Fucking Norm, bro.
Wonderful fucking family. Everything about Arturo's. The food, everything was and is great, right? So it was just so sensible that our contribution to this charity auction was a dinner with Large and Willie, with Willie and Large. It's all weird when I say at Arturo's, soup to nuts. And so it wound up we were hoping somebody would, bid on it, 1,000, couple of thousand. Some guy like bid 12 grand.
Yeah.
And he didn't live here, he lived down south.
Like North Carolina or something like that.
He flew himself up, got himself a hotel room, not too far from Arturo's. Meets me and Willie there. I speak to Mario about it. He's like, I'd like to donate the meal. Created a special menu for us.
Yeah, it was awesome.
8 or 9 courses. I'm sitting here talking about like only me and Willie know Arturo's when Vibbs had filmed a commercial there with us.
That was
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That was the most miserable day of my life because you guys were eating all this delicious food and I just had to sit there and watch. I wasn't allowed to eat because I was like the skinny guy in the,
Had to be the
commercial.
simp for the hour.
It's like DXL maybe, right?
It was like a big and tall,
Yeah. So anyway, Arturo's has always been a part of Barstool Breakfast. I don't go as much because I'm trying to lose weight. So this guy pays $12,000 to come and have dinner with Willie and I, and he's flying himself. So it's a $15,000 dinner date. He shows up. We go to the bar. So Willie has this uncanny thing where his throat doesn't move when he drinks. It's almost like you take a martini. When I have a martini, it's a sip. You can see my Adam's apple move. There's a gulping motion. I'm a fucking human. With Willie, it's like taking a martini and throwing it in a bucket from across the room. There's just nothing. There's no natural resistance. It's a physical marvel.
Oh,
so
man.
we sit down. I think I have 2 martinis. Willie has 4. This guy has 1 and a couple of beers. Then we go to the table.
Meet Phil Sims. Phil Sims was there.
Phil Sims is sitting right next to Willie. We have the Gumata table.
Yeah.
It's the only place in Arturo's that there are no cameras on you. That's the place where you can bring a girlfriend for like a mobster or something. It's the corner. It's next to an emergency exit.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect place. Mario opens up a magnum of wine for us. We're drinking. This kid starts trying to go drink for drink with us. Huge problem.
Big mistake.
We have the first course, maybe. Willie is turned around talking to Phil Sims, who's with his family at the next table. And all of a sudden, I see this kid do one of these. Like there was a little bit, and I see him gulp, like, one of those, and I was like, uh-oh, fucking throws up on the table. On everything.
But not just throw up.
So
pours out of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Phil Sims, Willie's turned around. Willie's just about left me for dead at this point. Phil Sims goes, somebody just threw up all over your food. Mario leaps into action, comes in, gets everything taken off. The kid then throws up on himself.
Like, when I talk about throw up, bro, like it was like pumping out of him. It was like,
And
It is all liquid. Just
I feel like it'd be on brand for Lower in the Bar. He should
it'd be perfect. Yeah, we
been a
should
champion.
sign him.
Yeah.
I call that bitch Annie. See? And
Won't say it.
Annie gets to Arturo's in record time. Like
she
a
pulls in like a goddamn fighter jet. Like
getaway driver.
Like crazy.
We take this kid. Mario throws us a bunch of tablecloths. We wrap him in tablecloths like a swaddling child as he's pissing himself. We take him, we put him in the backseat of I think I had like a big excursion or something at the time. We take him to his hotel. Willie is in a fur coat with a fedora. I'm in something also very big too. Willie picks the guy up. He's wrapped in things, and he looks like a corpse. We walk into this hotel. There's a Hasidic Jewish wedding. Right? So the Hasidic Jewish wedding is letting out. And that's the only part of Barstool's breakfast that wasn't represented. We never had any Hasidic Jews as part of the memory.
Right.
The guys look at us. And I think I heard like an oy vey or whatever.
So imagine, Large is 6'5", right?
Yeah.
I'm all of 6'3". I got this guy hoisted over my shoulder. It looks like we're hit. It's a hit.
Yes, 100%. They thought
Getting rid of a body. Yeah.
this guy didn't pay his debts, and you guys were taking care
Right.
of him. Yeah,
And we just happened to run into a civic wedding.
yeah.
And I'm speechless. Not from being drunk. Like again, we're fine. I don't know what to say. But Willie, as he's walking by, just pured it. Oh, what the fuck was it?
Oh, I
And
see.
that Bruno Mars concert got out of hand. That's what he said. Right. So we go up, we throw the guy onto bed, we get a couple bottles of water and a gift bag with some sweatshirts in it. Go to the front desk, we make sure that he has a wake-up call because we know everything.
Correct.
And then we don't speak to him.
We left him.
Again. Yeah, and then that was it. It was an absolute. Then we go back to Arturo's, and we completed the rest of the
we
night.
just finished the dinner.
Finished the
you got
night
it.
and stuff like that. So I think that people would come and try and drink with Willie and I often, and it never worked out in their favor.
No.
We drink less now. Like
A lot less.
I would tell you, we were having like a weight loss contest, and I think I was 320 at the time.
Were you?
Yeah, Willie would step on the scale, and they were like, one at a time, please. So we were the biggest fucking guys in this place, bar none.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have like other guys who are these bigger, dudes, like Taylor Lewan. Maybe he's a big dude. I think he's a big
Taylor.
drinker.
He's about 6'6".
That motherfucker wouldn't have stood a chance against us in our prime. Am I saying in our prime?
No.
Tomorrow, maybe.
No, you're right. I think what was great about the time, especially when people think about Barstool Breakfast, they think about the drinking and the shenanigans, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot of education. I didn't know shit about wine till Large, right?
Right.
I didn't know about the different exotic cheeses. I also never drank Pabst Blue Ribbon. Like the cheapest beer I drank in college was Natty Lights, right?
Yeah.
On top of that, we had Thanksgiving here on air.
Yeah.
Like, we brought in food. I had never heard of fucking White Castle stuffing until Large made it one time. And then it was just like an array of things that would just happen. So a lot of the drinking became educational. And
educational drinking. We were doing it for educational purposes, Bob.
100%.
Yeah. But it was also one of those things, too, where it was perfect because Willie was the first chair. So people who don't know, there's first, second, third chairs and type stuff. So Willie was the host. He was the first chair. And what was good was we could have any topic in the world.
Right.
And Willie would introduce the topic. And I think one of the benefits he had working with me was that he'd be like, what do you think? And I always had an opinion on it.
Always.
So then people would then know what the fuck we were talking about. They would kind of get an opinion on it. And they felt compelled to interact with us about that thing.
There's a call that sticks in my head to this day. There was a gentleman from South Carolina who had just moved, I think, somewhere with his wife. His wife had got a job, so he moved with his wife. And me and Large have fallen down this rabbit hole about guys, not older gentlemen who don't have friends. In particular, how it's hard for them to find new friends, especially when they move. And this guy called up and he's like, man, I just got this job. My wife got this job. I'm living with my wife in some bumfuck town, and I'm lonely as hell. And then we was like, well, where are you? He's like, I'm in California. I was like, how are you bored in California? Lars gives this guy the best advice, right? He goes, listen, this is what I want you to do, bud. He goes, get a cooler, get a chair, sit outside your residence, wherever you're at. There's going to be some gentlemen that walk by and this strike a conversation. Because it's not a real man would never pass another man with a cooler and a chair without saying something, right? And I'm looking at Lars like, that's fucking brilliant, right? The guy goes, bet. 2 days later, the guy calls back in. We're like, oh, such and such from, I'm called. He was like, yeah, how'd it go? He goes, nobody's talking to me.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I was like, keep calling us. Yeah, we'll be your friends.
He's like, nobody's talking to me. But it opened a conversation because I think, and I'm noticing this too, and Large, especially with my time with him, Large turns down more friends than people receive. Like, everybody wants to be Large's friend because he's extremely smart and witty and he's charismatic. I get the whole athlete thing because they either watch me play it or, I'm on TV talking sports. But we run into a lot of older men who don't have friends, who are literally lonely in these random-ass cities who have nobody to talk to. So we were the same age, the same demographic, and they loved kind of chiming in and getting to know us on kind of an emotional and spiritual and a personal level. And so it's wild, man, that middle-aged men kind of donned us their Jesus. Like they're not alone.
Dating advice. So first of all, Willie also has a ton of friends. Sometimes you can be an intimidating, as I said, sometimes I'm being 100.
I know.
That's what kids say. Ain't it real? But you can be intimidating to come up to, right? Because you're a big fucking guy. Yeah. And a lot of times you have your shoes off. Like there's a bunch of things, and he shares his shoe size with the Statue of Liberty. He's wearing the Butters now, but if he was to take these off, his toenails look like fucking poker chips. It's disgusting.
We had a makeshift gym in HQ2 for a little bit.
Yeah.
And you could see where Willie had his shoes off and was like walking around because it looked like Bigfoot's fucking. I was like, holy shit! Like it's yeah.
But one of the things that Willie and I had in common, so he says that I'm easy to make friends and whatnot. but we never really look for too much friends because we also are very close with our family. And that's one of the things that Willie and I think, are synonymous with, and him more so than me. So if you were to say to me, like if Annie was to go, Bridget's having her confirmation, we're going to do something in a restaurant, and we'll do, the family. So we'll know that there's 47 people that got to go. Willie, it's just different because Willie's like, okay, my kid lost his first tooth, so we're going to do something. So we're going to have 140 people. And so call the tent guy, call DJ Rob De Niro, right? You get Chef Ricky and Chef Leo. We'll do the Frogmore stew and all that kind of shit. And everyone is going home with a live chicken. So because we have family to fall back on, we don't need as much friends. Like Vibbs is in a totally different situation. He's a guy who's here in New York City. You're a perfect example. Like your family is all at home, and and Vibbs is a very good family man. Talks very fondly about his family, and I'm sure his family loves him very much. But you just don't get to do that as much as we do.
100%.
So we were very simpatico with that. I'm going to take a quick break if I can here, just to mention that we get a lot of DMs. So I got a DM this week from a gentleman named Adam. I believe it's Adam. And he said, Large, very recently, my wife lost her grandmother suddenly and unexpectedly. It hit her especially hard as her family is in excellent health and have not had to deal with much loss. Very lucky. This grandmother was the matriarch of the family, and it broke my wife's heart. Call it random or call it quality advertising, but shortly after, Paint Your Life came to my mind as we were looking through old pics, so I ordered a framed charcoal portrait rendition of the two of them on our wedding day, and it brought my wife to tears. I'd never thought I'd be the kind of guy who's influenced by podcast ads, but this one worked out pretty well. The portrait hangs in her office at this very moment. Thanks to you and the Queen and Vibbs for keeping up with Twisted History and not just hawking dick pills and powdered drink mix ads. Cheers. Is there a better way to go into an ad read? Paint Your Life? If you're looking for a deep, meaningful gift this holiday, do what Adam did. Adam had an opportunity to make relatives cry. Vibbsy had an opportunity to make his mom cry. So, you do these things, and it's very, very heartfelt, so I talk about it fondly. Paint Your Life can give your loved one a unique hand-painted portrait of themselves or a place or a person that they love. It transforms your photos into one-of-a-kind, beautiful hand-painted portraits by professional artists. Get a professional hand-painted portrait created from any photo for a deeply meaningful holiday gift. It's not like one of those AI things. Like right now, I can easily go to ChatGPT and say, give me a picture of me, half naked, but a little bit more muscular, riding a rhino into the sunset, and it could be here tomorrow. This isn't that. This is them commissioning an artist to copy your picture and put you in whatever type of situation that you want, and they do a fantastic job. So get started with your holiday shopping early this season. Give the most meaningful gift you have ever given from paintyourlife.com, and there's no risk. If you don't love the final painting, your money is refunded guaranteed. Order now to get Paint Your Life's early bird holiday offer, 20% off your painting. 20% off your painting. For a limited time, get 20% off and free shipping. You're welcome. To get this special offer, you got to listen. Text the word TWISTED to 87204. TWISTED to 87204. Text the word TWISTED to 87204. Paint Your Life. Celebrate the moments that matter most. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. Honestly, we love the thing, so go out and give it a whirl. So I'm here with Willie, and I'm with Vibbs, and we're talking about Barstool Breakfast.
In the house.
Ow, ow, ow.
Vibbs, what age did you have your first real job?
Good job, that is.
Yeah, still waiting.
Yeah. 20. I worked at a comedy club in the back, as a cook, when I was 20. But I don't think that's a real job.
No, that's an extremely real job. Willie, what was I started working when I was 12. That's when I started working.
Yep.
Willie, when did you first start?
My first real job was across from the Apollo Theater. It was called the 125th Street Mart. I worked upstairs at a vegan kitchen. This old mean ass fucking lady. She was mean she was like old school mean, and her nephew was like the manager, and I was kind of like the do everything boy. And so I would clean, cook, and one of the wildest things was she would take me to the local supermarket to pick up some produce and other stuff. But she wouldn't buy the fresh shit. She would buy stuff that's like damn near 25 minutes from going all the way bad.
Manager special.
Right. And so, because it was half price off everything.
Right.
And one time I remember we was in the supermarket and she was just like, get these tomatoes, get these cucumbers, all this stuff. And I'm like, all right. But I'm looking, I was like, ma'am, this stuff is bad. Like, I don't think you want to take it. She said, stay out my motherfucking business.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. And we got to the register, and this lady was like, because she was an older woman, the girl at the register maybe thought she was like, a little senile or whatever. And the girl's like, she was like, ma'am, do you want to get some new fruit and vegetables? Because these are bad. She was like, bitch, stay out my motherfucking business. And that was my experience, my first.
That was your first job?
First job. So I didn't say anything. I didn't utter a word. Whatever that lady told me to do, she used me like a fucking mule. She would just stack shit on me, go up these flight of stairs, put it down, and I would just do. And on top of that, I was hooping in the summer. I was working out for football. And I was taking public transportation all over New York. So that was like that was my first experience.
I think I was delivering Chinese food in the projects on my bike, which worked out pretty well for me. Yikes. Right next to Wall Bombs off of, I don't know, but I was 12.
Right.
And then I was delivering flowers for a flower shop, and I did some flower arrangement because I have an eye, like all that stuff. But my point is, so since I was 12 and now I'm 53, so I've been working for 40 years. I've been working for a lot longer than most of the people listening to this have been alive. I don't know if most people can say with confidence what their favorite job was because I've had so many. I can. My favorite job in that 40 years was that small period of time where I'd come in and do Barstool Breakfast. And I got to be honest with you, it wasn't particularly close. Again, I had a lot of fun on the floor.
That's wild for you to say because I love your Wall Street stories.
I had a lot of fun on the floor of the American Stock Exchange.
I love those stories.
As a specialist clerk, as a specialist, as a $2 broker, going over to the New York Stock Exchange and being like a frontline guy at the super booth for JP Morgan, going down to Atlanta and trading for Robinson Humphrey for a while, coming back up to New York to Citigroup trading utilities, doing Take a Report, then going to ICAP, and then all these things that I've done on top of being a janitor for a long time. I worked in restaurants. I did all this stuff. I've had a very full life. I'm extremely blessed, which we both, I think all three of us are.
Correct.
Extremely blessed. Probably not so much Vibbs, but definitely me and Willie are extremely
Vibbs is
blessed.
still finger banging behind.
Yeah, we're extremely blessed and very well
local
hung.
eateries.
I can tell you, it was the fucking greatest. And a lot of people think the grass always looks greener in the rearview mirror, because it was like, we weren't getting up early, but because we weren't getting up super early, we were still fighting traffic.
Yeah.
It wasn't one of those things where my alarm used to go off at 4:50 every morning, 25 years when I was in Wall Street. 4:50 every morning. So it wasn't that, but it was one of those things where we kind of put into it a little bit. I was more upset when they told us that they were walking away from the Sirius deal. Yeah. There was nothing wrong with Barstool Breakfast. We had people who were on the inside at Sirius who had given us some stats that we weren't allowed to see. And we were like the second biggest non-sports related morning show. And that's tallest midget in the circus. I know that. But it's still something behind some guy named Howard Stern on the Sirius dial. That's got to account for something. I was very proud of it. But the numbers didn't make sense, or perhaps the vision of Barstool and the vision of Sirius didn't make sense. So we gave up that contract, and we gave up all the shows, and I was fucking gutted. Absolutely gutted. And I think in retrospect, and again, 2020 vision, looking back, I think it was a fucking huge mistake on Barstool's part.
100%.
Huge fucking mistake to let that go, because it was amazing how we were able to just promote. I don't think Dave would have been able to keep doing it with any kind of clip because of the way that his celebrity has just skyrocketed.
Sure.
Great for Dave. But for me, I'm talking about, huge fucking mistake and something that I regret. Can you say something similar to that? Because even though I had a lot of fun on Wall Street, you won a fucking Super Bowl. Like, that's got to be the top for you, right? Like,
obviously playing for the Steelers.
It's got to be, right?
Super Bowl, and I played with Troy Pollard, Marlon Hines Ward, Ben Roethlisberger. I played with legit Hall of Famers. And contributed to the team, which helps. What Barstool did for me, my time with you, in my time here. And it allowed me to really see, the biggest thing with a lot of athletes, when you get off the field, you grieve. Mm-hmm. You grieve because you're playing at the highest level. I played in a lot of big time games against a lot of high competition. My biggest crux as being a Steeler was I always felt like I didn't belong because I was looking around all these Hall of Famers like, what is this kid from the Bronx with the hops you're doing here? But I was respected in my locker room and actually played and yada, yada, yada. Getting to Barstool allowed me to, one, not just be seen from a standpoint of being an athlete, but also be seen with somebody that didn't have a helmet on their head.
Right.
To open my mouth, be expressive, to have my brother in arms say, hey.
And you're good at it.
Yeah.
Like there's some guys who aren't good at it. There's some guys who are stat guys. There's some guys who are more like social type guys. You kind of hit the middle at it, and you're very good at it. So it made everybody around you, it made their job a little bit easier, I think.
But to your point also, like to have Large and Jesky and Pat and Za and a host of others and we built this kind of this thing, if you will, and it allowed my grieving period to really not hinder my production, because I know more bored, depressed millionaires than anybody. I'm talking about guys who made a lot of shit, a lot of money, who you can't get them off the couch, right. Or who made a lot of money, have the resume, have the notoriety, but they're absolute hermits within their own mansion, right? So Barstool allowed me to heal, and allowed me to heal with strangers. And so I always walked away from Barstool feeling in debt to you and the show, because I look at some of my peers, and these guys to this day are struggling. Mm-hmm. Struggling with just who they are. I was able to get all that out on air with some wine and some cheese I never heard of, talking to strangers and my brothers. And I get choked up about it only from this standpoint, because we had it. And I know other people would pray, they would die for what we had. Mm-hmm. And I would leave out of here sometimes and be like, man, life feels good. Like, it just felt fucking good. And so it hurts, man, because I don't know why we didn't get the backing or the support. And Large is right. When they cut the contract, they didn't even tell us.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't even like, it was just like, you guys are done. And I'm looking at Jesky, Zah, and everybody, and we all kind of had to just go into this ether and scramble and find our own ship.
Find a new thing to do,
and so it sucked, man.
And again, it probably didn't matter as much to a lot of other content creators here at Barstool. And there are a handful of content creators that are maybe better off that it's not there. But for me personally, and I'm saying for me, not for Willie, because I'm the guy who's still here, it was, on top of that being the best job that I've ever had in the 50 some odd years I've been spinning around this mortal coil, it was the best thing that I think I could have done here. And I think that it could have grew into something on that platform bigger. And maybe everybody's right. Maybe that's a dead platform where you can't make any money. Maybe it's the WNBA of platforms. I just don't know. But I was Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
And Willie was fucking Angel Reese. You know what I mean? He was jealous of my success. I just came in, workman type thing.
Worked your ass off.
Yeah,
You still do.
So the Gentleman's Friday thing. First of all, I had told you that I have to thank Willie for a couple of things in my career, or I give him credit for stuff in my career. No one's been more instrumental to my career than my dad. So my dad never graduated grammar school, dropped out in the 5th grade when his dad died, became a offshore fisherman off the coast of Ireland in the 5th grade, around the time I was learning to masturbate, 5th grade. My dad was sending money home. Then he came over to the United States on a boat by himself when he was 19, didn't know anybody, never wear underwear before he came to the United States, all that kind of things. My dad is the smartest guy I know, but he's not book smart.
Great man.
Yet he got me my first job on Wall Street just because he wanted to help his kid out. He was always looking for that. He was a hustler. Mm-hmm. So my dad, number one. And then my father-in-law, Rick Harvey, the gentleman who died on 9/11, was number two because he gave me my shot to do whatever the fuck I wanted. The third guy is a guy that you guys have never heard about, but he's a dude that when I was at Citigroup and I didn't know which way my career was going to go, he was instrumental in opening up to me, not keeping it close to the chest. His name was Mark Costi. And then once I'd gotten out of that industry, I'm starting this new one, you kind of need that new rabbi. And so Willie comes along, gives me the shot, him and Francis, but obviously it was Willie and I's show or Willie's and Francis' show. I never considered it mine and Francis' show when Willie wasn't there. So I think he was the linchpin on the whole thing, and everybody would agree with that, I would assume. They have so much talent coming through Barstool back then.
Oh, man.
That you would get a knock list. This person's coming in. Who wants him? Oh, it's somebody that was on The Bachelor. I'll take him at Chicks in the Office, and Kevin will take. But then I used to see this knock list, and there were always boxers on it. Always. Nobody would take them. There wasn't a single fucking boxing fan. So all of a sudden, I'd see people that I considered legends in boxing. Like all of a sudden, like Jerry Cooney was a good friend.
Bro, we have B-Hop here.
I was like, Willie, can we take some of these guys? I'd asked him.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, fuck it. Do you know a little bit about boxing? I was like, because he does. Willie's a boxing fan, but he's a football fucking player. Like, he's a football player, and he's a boxing fan. I don't play shit except for with myself, and I know boxing. So it was huge for me, and that's one of the things that gives me lasting cred here now. Because like the DAZN thing and all the shit that I did, and it wouldn't have happened if Willie's like, nah, I don't think that they're good. But they wound up all being good.
Oh, my God.
Every fucking combat person that we had in here was awesome.
We had Kamaru Usman when he won the belt. We had Stipe. We had, I mean, it was crazy. It was so ill about that. I was fortunate enough. So Dave Lockett is the head of PR for UFC, who also at the time was the head of PR for the Steelers. So I knew Dave before he got the job with UFC. He would call me and be like, hey, I hear you at Barstool, man. I got a couple guys. I got to get these guys, because they would do their car wash. They would go to ESPNs or whatever. I'm like, yeah. He's like, I hear your show's doing well. Can I bring them on? Do you mind if I'm like, hell yeah. And it was the same at the time when Large was like, if we can get these guys, I was like, oh, I got the UFC angle, you got the boxing angle. Let's go on. And we had the best of the best coming through here in the fight game, talking real-time combat sports. And what was ill about it, they weren't just coming here, they wanted to come back.
Yeah,
right. Like, that was the good thing. Like, guys would be like, oh, are we going to stop by? Or I would get texts. Large would definitely get texts like, hey, man, I'm in town promoting this. Can we stop by? I can tell you right now, once, all the analysts, when they're done with a guy, they're done with a guy. There's no like, oh, let's meet up. And these guys wanted to hang out with us. And we were only doing like a half an hour spot with them. Like, Lars probably he could call Teofimo's dad right now. Like, that was real-time access we had.
He still hangs out with George Cooney or whatever.
Jerry,
Jerry Cooney.
Yeah. George Clooney and Jerry Cooney.
I call him George.
Like all of a sudden, like who the fuck would take Lomachenko?
Right.
And Vasily Lomachenko is arguably one of the most talented guys to ever strap on a pair of gloves. Won 2 gold medals. Was one of quickest roads to a championship strap. The whole deal. Nobody I'll take him. Yeah. George St. Pierre. Obviously, Robbie would always take them too.
Right.
I mean, Robbie is the guy. We don't claim to be. But we had these fucking George St. Pierre is like a legitimate legend. Even like
we had Tito Ortiz here. Remember we had
Ortiz talking about Jenna.
We had Colby Covington.
It's Lionheart.
Yeah.
You guys knew your shit, and you're fun to hang out with. So it's this perfect combo of.
But I also think I think for a lot of fighters when they come up here, they obviously want to talk about their camps and their opponent and where they're at in their careers. I think Large did a great job of asking them real human questions, right? Like, and sometimes fighters get thrown off by that because they want to be perceived a certain way to kick ass. Large had the guys talking about fucking wine.
Right.
Large had them talking about like food, and on top of I forgot who the fighter was. He beat the shit out of an intruder. I think it was Lionheart. But he got really he was like, I guess I forgot the guy who was on here, but. Somebody who was like cranked out on meth broke into his house, and he ended up beating the shit out of a guy for like an hour because the cops took so long to get there. He said the guy wouldn't leave. He said he gave the guy an opportunity to leave. The guy wouldn't leave.
Right.
So he was fighting this guy for an hour in his living room, and it was just the most craziest story. And Large was like, so how do you feel about quiche?
What kind of couch did you ruin?
Right. And they loved it.
Yeah. Like T-Bud came in. Bud Crawford is one of the greatest fighters, pound for pound king and whatnot. But he's awful behind a microphone. He's not.
I remember that.
And it wasn't until I challenged him to a game of darts. And he's like, I will kick your ass in darts. And then all of a sudden they kind of open up. I was just last week with Fury in London, and everything was a car wash, same questions. And then I sit down, and a huge, people waiting behind me. I'm like, listen, you lost the last fight, and I had heard during that camp you're only jerking off 3 or 4 times a day. Everyone's like, what? And then I was like, and I know from our old things, it used to be like 7 days, like Large. He's like, you're right. And when I'm going to Saudi, I'm front loading it this time. He's like, I'm up to 12 times a day because I can't get any porn in Saudi. Like, I've always thought that secondary approach was the way to do it, but that's what got me to do my things with Canelo and all that stuff. And I think that has been, as I said at the top of the show, integral to quote unquote success here, if you want to call what I'm doing a success. And then the second thing that we had done is I had wrote the blog about 9/11.
Oh yeah,
I think
man.
that, like, you know,
Phenomenal
a couple of, you know, weeks beforehand. And then 9/11 came around and we were doing the radio show. And you had said to me, what do you want to do? Like, you don't have to do this show today. And I was like, if you don't mind, I'm going to talk about 9/11 on the air for the first time. And then, you know, maybe we can see if that goes anywhere. And you were like, cool. I'm going to take a back seat. Like you had said to me,
Yeah.
I'm going to take a back seat. So this, the guy who was first chair, wasn't first chair on 9/11. I was. Extremely grateful for that. So we go through our thing. It's a good story. Like, and we're New Yorkers.
story.
Like, Willie is a Bronx guy. Willie Colon shows up to the fucking Bronx with a fucking Ryder truck. He opens it up. He gives out turkeys while somebody else is doing people's hair and somebody else is giving people fucking backpacks full of supplies that kids in the projects that he grew up in can go to school and be able to have the tools that they need to fucking succeed. Right. That's a New Yorker. I was born in the Bronx. I got the fuck out. I don't go back. But I was raised in Brooklyn, so we're New Yorkers. And so it was at that time where people were starting to forget about 9/11. It was no longer on the front page of the Post and the Daily News, which is crazy because Normandy still fucking has it on the front page every D-Day. Like, so we had people calling in and everyone's like, we don't have a story from 9/11. We're going to go with yours, Large. Like, that's the connection that they made. And we wound up spending 2 hours talking about it. And I thought it was one of the greatest things that we ever put out.
100%.
We almost didn't. Like, if you weren't like, you want to roll with it? Done.
Well,
and maybe it was the greatest thing we ever put out because I was hosting. I don't know about that, but it was,
Well, it was
one of those
also-
things that was very, very good.
It was one. It was really real. 2, it was real emotional, and 3, I didn't know because of the impact on Ann and you together where it was going to go. So I felt like, and what the fuck was I going to say? Like, this is.
There was no joke you could make.
No, there was nothing about.
Yeah.
But what was great
Imagine
about
that, Vibbs. Like, I don't mean to interrupt you,
go.
but imagine like you're the guy, and you have to sort of, you know, like, I don't know what you could have done that may have insulted me or fell flat on the air or got you fucking quasi-canceled for, like, there's nothing that, but I could say it because it was my story.
Right.
And not a story that's more important or more dire or diabolical than that's happened to many people. I know that. I know what it is. It's my wife's story, actually. So, like, I was able to do it. And it was, I thought it was a wonderful show. We walked out of there and Patty, who has no fucking emotion except for other guys, joking, Patty's gay, was like, that was great. That was fucking great. And I was like, it was, and not because of ratings, not because of anything. It was just very, very good radio. It just meant a lot to me. So it's, and I've thanked you for it before, but I thought that was extraordinary.
My question to you is: do you think there are things we should have done more of, or do you think we missed an opportunity along our time together?
If we had, so it got very buddy at the end, right?
Yep.
Like towards the end. So we would basically just kind of come in and shoot the shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. If there was more of like a production team behind it, this isn't a dig on the guys that were in the booth, right? Because Patty was actively doing a bunch of stuff and all that. And then we wasn't, like, maybe there was something, because every project that you've done since then, you've probably had statisticians and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, there's a whole department that can help you out.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got
and
you.
I think, like, as far as that goes, maybe that would have changed the complexion of the show too, you know? So
Wouldn't have been as organic.
Yeah, maybe it wouldn't have felt as, wouldn't have felt as authentic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. To answer your question, I can't think of anything offhand. I'd be reaching.
I wish, one of my biggest wishes, if they were like, hey, we're not going to have you during the morning, right? I wish we could have had an after dark.
Oh yeah.
I wish we could have had a Barstool late night edition where, because we were already used to the office being gone in the morning. Mm-hmm. So like, all right, push us to the night. Get the cameras, just leave the castle, give us the keys. And I feel like that would have been the next big step, because one of the things we ran into with your connections and my connections, if it weren't the fighters or people who were on the talent sheet that were coming in, people just didn't want to get up and get that early to be on the show.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
It was like, bro, I love you guys, but I might get up at 7 and just talk shit with you.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine me, Large, the whole gamut, going live at 10 o'clock at night and letting us just having 2 hours to just tear shit up. Because then the drinking would have been, I guess,
would have killed us.
Yeah, then it's acceptable. And,
it would have been more acceptable.
Right.
But
Really
we
would've
would
killed us.
We would have had this shit on another level. So that's when I was like, man, if they would have just said, hey, we're going to take you off the morning, let Barstool do their thing, and from 9, prep the show, 10 o'clock, Willie and Large take over, this shit would have been jumping. That would have been like, okay, let's do it. So Barstool Breakfast After Dark would have been on another level.
Yes, I agree with that 100%, because Gentleman's Friday, I'm going to close in a little bit talking about Gentleman's Friday, and I'm going to see if we can get something maybe going on some sort of reunion thing. But I will tell you, when was it? I had seen a clip of it the other day. You were at the Super Bowl. And you called into the show. And I was like, and your wife was pregnant at the time. Which
Okay.
Kid. And I was like, by the way, she had the baby last night. I said, but everyone's doing fine. I hope you're enjoying the Super Bowl. I hope your poppy steak is good or whatever. But there was another thing that I just entered my mind and left when we were doing it. What the fuck?
The Super Bowl?
Remember when you went to the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
There was another instance where for some reason I was hosting alone. Kind of last minute. And the reason I was hosting alone is Willie was supposed to not be here. He was on vacation. So that day was myself, Francis, Patty, Za, Jetski, more than enough to obviously do a show, right? For some reason, you were on vacation. You were out of town. And the night before, Francis wrote the blog about the dead girl.
Oh, yes.
So I came in extra early, and
Dave called me.
There was nobody here.
I remember that.
But Erica was like here at 6. She was like, I spoke to Dave up all night with it and stuff like that. The best thing that we wanted to, the best course of action is we're letting Francis go.
It wasn't Super Bowl. I did go on vacation. I was in London. I went out to London. That's what it was.
And but you were supposed to be there.
I was.
He was out. It's not like I'd be like, Willie, get in the fucking office tomorrow. We got a real banger to go.
Right.
And so she was like, you're going to be the one that announces to everybody that Francis was fired for this. They thought that was better than maybe Dave making an announcement, or maybe Dave, whatever, it was making an announcement later in the day.
Yeah.
And that was a tough one. That was a fucking tough one.
I want to say it happened on like a Friday.
Something like that.
As Barstool Radio was like wrapping up.
Yeah, so I was the
Barstool
Monday
Radio.
show.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah, so all that stuff stewed over the weekend.
Yes.
And then they decided on Sunday that they were going to fire him. And obviously it worked out well. He came back and stuff.
Yeah.
So that was tough. That's one where I was
tough.
And I didn't mind if, let's say Willie, because again, we're traveling from a different state. So Willie's had to do the show by himself a couple times, because I used to drive a low-profile sports car, and I used to fucking rip my tires apart going through the Lincoln Tunnel. I did it.
I remember that twice.
Thousands. Yeah, it was a rocket ship, by the way. I looked sexy as shit in it. Or if Willie got stuck somewhere, I was more than okay doing a show by myself, particularly because we had so many great guys in the booth. But that one, I was like, I don't want to do this without Willie.
Yeah.
You know, like if me and Willie did that, that was one of, I don't believe like we ever had a bad show.
No.
Some shows were much better than others.
Right.
I don't think we ever had a bad show. I thought that show, if Willie and I could have spoke about it together, then that would have been good. But Barstool Breakfast was a place that broke it. And it's not like a president was shot or anything like that, but I just remember that as I'm up there, because, I don't get flapped by anything. I don't give a shit. I was like, man, I wish Willie was here for this one. I wish he didn't take so many vacations.
Yeah, I remember when Dave called me and said, "Hey, I don't know if you heard, but we got to let go of Francis because of the blog," and I was just like, "Okay," I didn't know what to say, because Francis has always gone wherever he goes, and he's gotten away with it. So I don't know, but obviously he's back, and he looks like he's kicking a lot of ass. So good for Francis.
Yeah, and it was right after the Penn deal was announced. So everyone had kind of tight assholes about what the hell we're doing now because we're actually owned by a company, so it was out of our hands. I thought it was the wrong decision when it was being made. I thought that it was something where, I mean, I spoke to Eric about it. I was like, are we going to just, suspend him until this thing goes over? Just say, go home without
Hide him in a closet till everything's done.
Yeah, but they decided to go. They decided to actually do that, but fire him and hire him back. You know what I mean? And the same thing with Mincy. So I don't know. So I miss it. I'm going to hit my last ad read right now, and then we're going to kind of coast into the end of this thing. But this is brought up by SimpliSafe. If you're like me, the safety of your home and loved ones isn't just a priority. It's your everything. The problem is old school home security systems only take action once someone is already inside of your house. SimpliSafe Home Security is changing that with its new ActiveGuard outdoor protection. It's the only home security designed to prevent crimes before they happen. With ActiveGuard, SimpliSafe's 24/7 monitoring agents kept a close watch over your property and actually stop crimes before they happen. The cameras use advanced AI. There's agents you can talk to directly. They send a loud siren, flashing lights, and even alert the police. While other systems only react after a break-in, SimpliSafe combines live monitoring and proactive protection both outside and inside your home. I always speak very fondly of SimpliSafe because when my wife got bit by the German Shepherd, it all was on tape, and I love to play that tape back a couple of times a week. Protect your home with 50% off a new SimpliSafe system. I shouldn't have glanced over at that. 50, 50, half 100. Protect your home with 50% off a new SimpliSafe system, plus a free indoor security camera when you sign up for Fast Protect monitoring. Just visit simplisafe.com/twisted. That's simplisafe.com/twisted. There is no safe like SimpliSafe. All right, let's talk about Gentleman's Friday. Because I think it's always been a favorite part for people who are in their cars and wanting to do just about anything else, go to their offices.
It is mind-blowing to me to find out that you didn't invent Gentleman's Friday, Large. Like, drinking on a Friday morning, I'm like, oh, that's Large's idea for sure.
You have no idea.
Went over like a fucking ham and Hanukkah when this girl had put this in front of these guys. They were like, we're not fucking doing it.
I swear to God.
We're not doing it.
If you would have saw the pushback on camera and off camera about Julie wanting to have this segment, and all she was doing, by the way, like our shit became the show.
Yeah.
Her shit was literally a cocktail. We'll try it. Cheers. Have a great weekend. That was it.
Yeah.
And you would have thought a fucking like we were trying to pass a bill. Like it was just the pushback was intense to the point where like first it was like, I think we have to sit down with Erica and Dave and talk about this.
Yeah.
Like, it was that type of intense.
Yeah.
And then once she left, we was like, we're gonna drink on Fridays. All right, no problem.
Yeah.
It was just like,
honest to God, I didn't listen to Barstool Breakfast. I didn't follow Barstool. I didn't know who Julie was, didn't know who Willie was, didn't know who Francis was. So as I got to know these guys, they never really reminisced about the old show. I didn't know it. So when I was like, I think I'm gonna open up a bottle of wine next week. I got a couple of bottles at home.
Just like that.
And that's it. And Willie's like, yeah, I could do a bottle of wine on Friday. So I brought in a couple of bottles, maybe 2 bottles, and I never wanted to be rude. So I brought in a baguette, some cheese, and some dried meats. And that was it. And then the next Friday, I was like, you want to run that? Yeah, I think we should. By the way, if you guys enjoyed any of the wines, any of the booze, any of the foods that you ever saw on Gentleman's Friday, it was all me. I catered a party. And by the way, I never handed that in at the beginning.
You didn't. I remember we talked about that.
So much money going out the fucking
He was
door
just
to
swiping.
feed these animals. So
can I say one thing?
go ahead.
Large is an asshole.
I am an asshole.
Because
Yes.
he says that, right?
Yes.
We
Offered all the time.
Offered all the time. And 2, he's a stickler.
was gonna get to that.
He's very meticulous.
Yes.
The shit has to make sense.
Correct.
It has to be right. It has to be classy. So I'll be like, yeah, I'll get a bag of Doritos. He'd be like, really, get the fuck out of my face. Like,
Yeah.
Gentleman's Friday was Large is the oracle. He is the sole purpose of Gentleman's Friday. I was not allowed to do anything other than sit, drink, and talk.
Shut up, eat, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, and you're right. And you always like, can I give you money for this? I started handing it in at the end. Towards the end, I was getting reimbursed. You see, Twisted History, sometimes I try to be as like I'm always trying to do that. Like that was kind of my baby. And on top of it all, I'm complaining about it now. I enjoyed it so fucking immensely.
Can you tell the story real
ahead,
quick?
tell
I know before. I know you want to wrap it up.
No, I'm not wrapping up till
The story of me, you, and Patty at El Cid's with Francis, and we ordered the lobster.
I don't know what. So we would
One of my favorite stories of
we
it.
do these things outside of the office where we would tape something here, tape something there. I don't know. I think we were taping we had taped in your house. I think you had lent us your house.
Yeah, it was something.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, no, maybe we did the skydiving, the indoor skydiving.
Oh yes. I fly. There you go.
So we were out by Willie and I, and so after we were done with the wrap, we wrapped very early, at 12 o'clock, because of morning shoot. I said, why don't we go to El Cid's, which is no longer there anymore.
No, it's
on
gone.
Paramus Road in Paramus. And El Cid's, I had been going. I've had multiple christenings there, like family parties. I've been going to El Cid's forever. We sit down, and Willie and I, Francis is like, okay, what are we going to do? I was like, I'll just order some stuff for the table. We sit down at the bar. I'm like, can we get 3 pitchers of sangria, one with no apples because I'm allergic to apples, one with no oranges because Willie's allergic to oranges. How fucking weird is that, right? You can't get your arms around us. I'm allergic to apples. You allergic to anything, Vibbsy?
No.
And I could throw him a country mile.
Yeah.
I could essentially throw Vibbs like a javelin. So we go in there. We have lunch. There's the 4 of us. We have an $800 lunch because we have lobsters like we're fucking mobsters. We had the chorizo coming out, the scallops still in the shell. They did a very good job. We smelt like Paul Sorvino's taint by the end of it, just garlic among
We're eating like we're about to go to jail for 8 years.
Yeah.
I mean, large orders on. So when we sit down, we spread out in the bar. On there, it says large is sitting right next to me. The lobster's like an 8-pound lobster.
8 pounds. Who the fuck would order that?
8-pound lobster.
It's disgusting.
Prime rib, right?
Yeah.
And so me and Lars go, let's order that. We
Yeah.
order it, and then we cover the bar with food and fucking booze.
Yeah.
I look over at the end of the bar, and Francis is like nervous. Like,
He doesn't even want to eat because he wants to be complicit in this.
Yes, he's
crime.
like, he goes, guys, I gotta tell you, I got something to say. So Large and I slapping down with chips and steak and shit.
Yeah.
He's like, this may be overdoing it, and if Dave sees the bill, there's going to be a problem, guys, and I just don't want to be a part of it, so maybe you just want to dial it back. So Large is like, oh, yeah, sure, we'll dial it back. Hey, let's get another lobster fucking out.
Well, wave it on.
8-pound lobster.
Like nobody orders an 8 pound.
I didn't know that existed.
They're not good.
No.
They bring out this fucking sea creature, and we just wanted it, like just to have. And when the bill came out, and again, Francis was being fiscally responsible. He was being the adult in the group.
And he
We
had the
needed
card.
him.
He had that's the problem. He had the
he was the
Barstool card.
gatekeeper, yeah.
Yeah, so he was in charge of the card.
I think I wound up taking that bill, and then
No, you
I
didn't.
handed it in. No,
No, we handed
see
that.
how I wanted to take credit at.
No, we handed it in, and in Francis's head, we're all fucked. Like, this is about to go nuclear, right?
Right.
I don't give a fuck. Lars doesn't give a fuck. We don't give a fuck.
Okay.
We turn it in, right? And you can see every day Francis is just waiting for Dave, Eric, or somebody in the building to just like, who the fuck spent $2,500 at a fucking bar named El Cid's?
Yeah.
He's just waiting for
lunch.
it.
Yeah.
And me and Large just like never talked about it. But to him, that was like, oh, these guys are on the other side. They don't give a fuck.
It was going to ruin him, he thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it became like Willie was inviting me to family parties,
Of course.
and Willie would come over my house like on Christmas, like bring the kids by on Halloween, like whenever. It really did, particularly towards the end, become a family.
100%.
Za was missing Zimbabwe, so I would invite Za over to my house for a Sunday sauce, and he could hang out with my mom and my dad, me and my brothers, my kids and my wife, and he was family. Francis, the following week, said, I kind of miss Maine. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's not Zimbabwe, but all right.
Francis would come over, and my daughter, who's a singer and an actress, would then sing in front of Francis, and it was like an honor to have him, like, not critique him because he's obviously extremely gracious, and then spend time with my family because it's always great. Willie, like, I would go to Willie. I know more of Willie's aunts and uncles. I was just talking to Willie invited me to play fucking ping pong against an all-American track and field star, and I don't know if that girl's been able to look in the mirror after the thing I did to that bitch. I took her down. And then the second girl came up. She had her own paddle and I was fucked. But I know, like I was talking to Hot Dog during that. I was, you know, all your uncles and your brothers and stuff like that. It's extraordinary, Jeff. And like perhaps you and I have been doing Twisted History for a long time. You know, you've been to my wife's, you know, birthday. You've met my family. He was at an omakase with us the other day. So there are just a couple of people within the firm that I would trust or like to have around my family. And it just so happened Patty, Jet Ski, Za, and Willie were number ones with a fucking bullet during it, and we happen to be hosting the same fucking radio show every day for 2 years. It's kind of fucking cool. What do you think? What do you think we can do to recapture that magic? You know what I mean? First of all, what the fuck is going on now? So now your wife, Willie has 2 kids. He didn't have any kids when we were doing the show. Willie has 2 beautiful children. And he's been involved with a whole bunch of stuff. You can talk about whatever the hell you want to, but on top of it all, just mention the whole reality show thing because it's fucking wild. And then, Jeff, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you to talk about the thing. Then I'm going to ask if we can do a Barstool Breakfast Gentleman Fridays reunion. Then I'm going to let people out of here. But what the hell's going on?
So right now, man, I'm on. I'm on Fox Sports with Craig Carton, Breakfast Bar. I come on every other day or every other week. Pretty much when they call me, I show up. And still doing the SNY pre and post covering the god-awful Jets. I don't know when they're going to get it right, but one day. And on top of that, man, my wife's reality show, which is called The Bell Collective, which is on the Oprah Network, OWN. That actually drops this Friday, the start of the season. Actually, I get in a little fisticuffs in there. So, yeah. So that gets interesting. And, and so that's what we're doing, man. I think, you know, I miss Barstool because it allowed the gentleman in the room.
Yeah.
And it was fun. And it allowed guys who have, to your point, lived 1,000 lives, being able to tell those stories and still evolve in the same process. And then to do it with somebody, you know, I love you like I call you my brother. I love you like a brother. And it also, you know, I think it allowed folks who, like I said earlier, who maybe aged out of Barstool to not disconnect from Barstool.
Mm-hmm. And Willie, did you get a kick out of me, like when I show up to your house with the giant white guy in a giant rope chain with with a flamethrower?
Loved it.
Because I got a kick out of having this fucking massive lineman behind me, like to have somebody bigger.
I got a kick out of you throwing up in my bushes and getting caught up. Ever tell you that story?
No.
Lars, I had a big barbecue, and Lars, you know, I had like an ice luge, and you can take shots at the
Stop! Stop! He didn't have an ice luge. Willie sets up the. He's the only one that has a barbecue that's sponsored. There's stations and debauchery over here and kids rides over here and this type of foods. Oh, what do you want? We're doing a goat over there. We're doing jerk chicken over there. We got our oxtails over. If you want something on the grill, it's a perfect place for me to get ahead of myself.
And he
100.
did.
Yeah.
And so. So for some reason, I forgot I was looking on the security camera, and so I was in the house rewinding it and looking for something. I forgot what the situation was. Anyway, you see Lars talking. He's talking to a group of people, and he puts up the finger like, "Excuse me." And at the time, he has a bandana on, and so I'm looking at him like, "Yeah, there goes Lars," and I'm kind of like following, looking for what I'm looking for, and I see Lars do one of these, kind of like. And tuck his head behind my bushes and throw up.
Was this alcohol? Was this just too much food?
No, it was.
I didn't think that was possible.
He barfed, right? Gave himself the 1-2 and goes back to the conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a pro.
Yeah.
But the visual was fucking hilarious because I just know how large it is. Like, there's no way I'm tapping out. I just got to get this out. Like, this.
I will tell you that I was down in Athens, Georgia for whatever game for Bud Light. With Willie, and we were going from bar to
Georgia
bar
Notre Dame.
Georgia Notre Dame. Yeah, we met Tim Brown and Bettis and stuff. So we were down there covering that game. That wasn't the game where Patty broke the Mexican girl's nose.
No, that was the Florida-Georgia game.
Florida-Georgia. Oh, he got so fucking lucky. He's wonderful little.
He should have got sued. He should have got arrested for that.
We were throwing Bud Lights because we ran out of T-shirts. We were doing this off the stage with some country act behind us. and Patty's throwing him fucking full overhand.
He
and
turned
this
it to fucking
beautiful young
Kershaw.
lady,
Just slinging
Kershaw
him.
overnight.
right in the fucking bridge.
I mean, he decked this lady with a fucking can. Like we're throwing stuff, and all you see somebody lady go like whop.
Yeah, we got a lot of trips together. So we're 2:00 in the morning. We're fucking just out of it, and we go to a gyro shop.
Oh yeah,
in Athens, and as we're standing online with a bunch of kids who are in college, like one kid got mouthy and drunk, I think to me, and Willie was standing behind me. So I was like, "You sure you want to do this, man?" And then I took one step back, and I was, now next to Willie, like a real coward move, like the Chihuahua next to the Bulldog. The kid comes over and he says, "I didn't mean any disrespect," and he touched Willie, and Willie's like, "You didn't mean any disrespect, but you just fucking touched me in front of people." And the kid's like, "I didn't mean to." He's like, I said, "Are you about to fucking touch him again? You think this is gonna fucking end well for you?" And he was like, "I don't think it's gonna end well." I was like, "I'll tell you how it's gonna end. You're not getting anything. You're paying for our food, or you're never leaving here." I don't have the balls to do that, Jeff. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have the balls to do that.
No.
I did with fucking Willie behind me.
Yeah.
I did. And, it's gotten to the point where my kid just had senior night for his football team.
awesome, man.
And they have all the parents out there and they give the mom a rose and all that stuff. I was thinking about not inviting any of my family members and being like Finnegan McCarthy, where everybody else is like, brought his mom and his dad and his grandma. Finnegan McCarthy, and with Finnegan is Super Bowl winning lineman Willie
I would've
Colon,
came.
and future Hall of Famer fucking Mangold. That would have been great.
I would've came.
And he came
You know I
out with
would've
two
came.
fucking roses for you guys. No, I had to bring my mom and dad.
Oh, of course.
You know what I mean? Like, just to be respectful. So it became, like, I don't know. You throw around the idea of having family at work, but you very rarely mean it. And so it's important enough for me to do the history of Barstool Breakfast on a history podcast where I should be talking about, the fact that the Ritz-Carlton hotel chain was started because the future owner got caught stealing wine from the Savoy Hotel. Like, I need to get that shit out on this podcast, but I think that this is infinitely more important.
Since I'm, obviously out of here and you guys are still here, what era is Barstool in right now? Since you guys, we talked a little bit about it behind the curtain. You guys, Barstool has gone through a multitude of changes. I'm curious, what's the state of Barstool? What does it look like, and how would you name this era of Barstool in which it's in?
That's a good question.
Tough one. I mean, it's not the glory days, right? Because everyone always considers the glory days. I don't think we're living in the glory days.
Right, but I think it's better. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this after Penn, because when Penn, we had so many eyeballs saying you can't do this, don't do that. And now Dave bought the company back, and it's like, all right, well, do whatever you want again.
Is that a rebuild? Is that where we are now? Like, trying to figure out where we exist in this media landscape, do you think? Or, like, I don't know. I don't know what that is, Will.
Because we haven't had any new hires recently. I think we need some new hires, like, to bring in some new blood and, like, kind of get things.
Which I think you should be in
Switch it
charge
up a little bit.
I should be in charge.
And I say that from... You understand talent, but you also know what hard work looks like. You know people who are doing the work, care about their craft, and passionate about it, compared to somebody who's like, "Hey, dude, I got a job because I'm going to stay out of my mom's house." You've always had an eye for that, and you know it from both sides, from a talent side and also from like a logistic side, like a legal side. You have an eye for that. So if there was somebody that should be head of talent or recruiting, whether it's writing, content creator, whatever, Large McCarthy should be in charge of.
And I do not want to do it. I would tell you right now that you got a guy like Steve Che, who you were close with also. He was one of those guys that started on the third floor in sales and came down to content. Like, I sometimes think with my background, would I be the only content guy that might do a reverse and go up to sales? And this isn't shitting on sales or anything. I have a very good relationship with it. But maybe, I certainly hope that I fit in here for a long time to come. I just spent a day with Dave at the track in Miami. Everything seems fine. It was real cool hanging out with Dave again, because I don't get to see him that often. But it's a good question. I don't know definitively what era it's in. I'm very bullish on the company. A lot of people, if you listen to the comment section, people are very bearish on the New York office versus the Chicago office. And the Chicago office obviously is, a fantasy factory. So I totally get that. But I'm bullish on the company. But I don't know what era that we're in Barstool era. Maybe it's the large era.
Yeah, it's a good.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But would you come back? Like, so And I'm going to ask you, Jeff, do you think there's an audience then for us to get back and run it back, definitely for a reunion show? Like, I think there should be a Gentleman's Friday Christmas spectacular.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Because when we left here every Friday, particularly in this HQ, I would bring all of our stuff. Willie's like, oh, I love this Greek beer. Right?
Yeah.
And I'd source it. I'd bring it in, a bunch of different wines. Then we'd go all out there. We'd sit down and we'd drink wine with everybody. Because none of the managers were in on Fridays, right? So everybody from the third floor would come down, like Katie football.
Yeah.
Knows more about football.
Yeah.
She's forgotten more about football than anybody here ever knew. She came down. She'd like try. She'd be like, "Can I just try one?" Because she was trying to get a little bit of a palate on what different wines are. She's like, Rowan would come by. He'd be like, "Jesus, Large, you should just do wine tastings. This is
Right.
awesome."
Yeah.
He's like, "When have you seen 30 Barstool employees hanging out? Not one person had their phone out.
Just hanging
One
out.
person was like, "Hey, look at me, I'm having a Syrah."
Yeah.
You know, so I think there's a market for it.
I think there's definitely a market for it because I think with all the drama that was going on last week with the Tate stuff, and he brought up the point that the Yak is a daily show where everyone kind of hangs out and people come in and out of it. And New York office doesn't really have that. They just have their own individual brands and it's kind of isolated. So if there was a Barstool breakfast that kind of brought everyone together, I think that'd be a huge thing in defining the era that Barstool's in now.
Yeah.
Or at least the New York office.
Do you ever feel uncomfortable coming into because I say that Willie's intimidating. Some people say that I'm intimidating. Like there are kids here that Annie has spoke to them and they were like, by the way, we never spoke to your husband when he first started. We were so intimidated to talk to him. I won't name names, but it's very sweet that these people had said that. And now I'm very close, relatively close with them. Were you ever intimidated coming into Barstool Breakfast?
No, not coming into Barstool Breakfast, but I think whenever at HQ2, when you step off the elevator, the doors open and everyone's just there looking
to
at
the
you.
zoo.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, fuck. Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. We had Stu Finer who used to come on.
Stu.
We used to Stu thing. There was another person who felt that their job was in jeopardy, and I was like, well, I do weekly stuff. Like I always tell Stu he can come in and give his picks on a Friday or something like that. I offered it to many people, and people took us up on it. They'd come in and just do whatever. There's one guy who was like, I just don't think that I'm going to be able to. And I was like, well, come in. I'll give you a weekly segment. What time? I was like, oh, we'll do it sometime between 7:45 and 8. Oh, I can't get up that early.
Yeah.
Like it was one of those things where it's, like it wasn't for everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was like a morning show works, but I think there's something that might be able to. And I think getting together for a Gentleman's Friday with the whole crew, flying Zaz ass out, Patty, because it just feels like I'm cheating on him sitting here talking to you.
Right. And then it will be it'll be, obviously, we'll go down memory road. But I think also, especially with Zod, Pat, and Francis, everybody has their own perspective of how they felt about us and what we were doing on Barstool Breakfast.
Yeah. And there's no shortage of opinions there. Like I'd like to get not eviscerated, but I think the playful jabbing that we used to do was good. I miss being in front of a microphone with Francis and with Pat and with Jet Ski and stuff like that.
All good times, man.
What are you doing now, Vibbs? What do you got dropping?
We have a pilot coming out called Beer Game Show. It's like Double Dare if it aired on Cartoon Network, and the contestants smoked like K2 Spice before they went on. But everyone is just drinking. It's stupid. It's hanging out. It's fun. It's not supposed to be taken too seriously.
Cool. And when does it drop?
Today at 4 p.m. So it should be out now.
So we're taping this on Tuesday, October 29th. This will probably drop on Halloween. Oh, this is the Halloween special by chance. And so you'll be able to see that on all Barstool stuff. And what is this, the third season of the Bell Collective for you, Bill?
This is the third, yeah. This is technically the fifth. So this is the fourth for me. 5 seasons, I've only been on it for 3. So
okay.
Season, correct.
And you can catch that on the OWN network. And as always, like and follow the podcast here. That's probably the most important thing that I'm going to say. So, Willie, I'm going to drive home with you. By the way, we drove in together.
Yeah, we're going home.
Picked him up.
I got to get home. I got to swim. I got to get the kids.
Yeah, first time I ever picked him up, he was hungover. He goes and he gets in the back seat. He thought I was a fucking Uber driver. Son of a bitch. That's Barstool Breakfast, though. Willie, you know how much I love you. I appreciate your time. Jeff, ditto. We'll see St. Ann. I'll see you in a couple hours, but you guys will see her on the next episode. And that's it for Twisted History of Barstool Breakfast.